On the other side of Hongluo Valley, a group of officials and soldiers are frantically searching for a spirited horse. The one leading the group is none other than the City of Daylight's Shadow Glow heir apparent. Peek Dugu, only to see him kick a soldier away, shouted loudly. Even the horse couldn't keep up with the pursuit. Such a unique horse, not to mention it might be injured. Continue searching, we must find it. Women at Moonlit Water Pavilion are indeed delicate in mind. As gentle as water. Inside a station. Moonlit Water Pavilion Acting Court Master Sue Blackrobe and the third Court Master Purple Run are waiting at the door for the people inside. It didn't take long. I saw a child walk out shyly. This person turned out to be her, but she now had the appearance of a girl. Although the clothes were a little big, she still looked remarkably cute. Mr. Tan exclaimed in shock. Impressive! I didn't realize last night that this child was actually a girl. How did acting sect leader Sue know this? Blackrobe Sue smiled slightly. It turns out that last night, Evan Sue claimed that the cases involving this child, Cloud-Touched Hue, and Sea-Viewing Heavenly Gate have not been resolved. They cannot be taken away. Evan Sue then decided to have the two individuals wait at the post house for Liu, the chief escort, to clarify the situation and personally send them away. But everyone on the scene knew that this was just an excuse. Sue Blackrobe was the first to speak up. Disputes in the martial world do not need a child to explain, especially since this child has suffered so much. Master Daoist Sue, this child's life. Moonlit Water Pavilion will take him in for now. If there are questions in the future, it could be Dragon Court Mountain or East Gao Ridge. I will personally take the child there, without hesitation. Mr. Tan also stated at this time that since Cloud-Touched Hue is an important witness in this case, he must be escorted back to report to the old governor's aid. If there are still doubts upon the teacher's return, one can directly go to White City Mountain for questioning. Evan Sue sees that his own skills are mediocre and knows he is no match for the two, so he cunningly argues. There is no precedent in the Moonlit Water sect for accepting male disciples. If not, even Cloud-Touched Hue could be taken back by the acting court master. Based on the acting sect leader's noble reputation, there should be no loss of face. Let us take this young boy back with us. Sue Blackrobe smiled slightly. Who said here is a boy? Didn't Master Daoist Sue see it? It's clearly a girl. At this time, Sue Blackrobe saw Mr. Tan and asked about it. He explained, If you look carefully, it's not difficult to see the innate feminine vibe in your eyes. Mr. Tan focused a bit, but still couldn't observe anything. He thought that he needed to cultivate more himself. The governor's aide, Elder Xiao, had also mentioned that his perspective was not broad enough. Mr. Tan immediately chuckled and said, Anyway. Finally, the dispute was resolved. Master Daoist Sue and several other Taoist elders left the post station early this morning. Went to find their master. Cloud-Touched Hue is seriously injured, thanks to the careful care of the disciple Moonlit Water. I have already sent someone to investigate the news about Elder Wei and the cursed sword. I will inform everyone immediately once there are results. Sue Blackrobe nodded slightly in gratitude. Moonlit Water Pavilion will be more attentive for the next few days. If anything unexpected happens, I can help. East Sea has 3 major blacksmith workshops. Blue Summit Radiance, specializing in customization. Red Serpent Hall has convenient access to raw materials. The 2 workshops have been producing military weapons for the court for 100 years. City of Daylight Shadowglow, a rising star, has taken a different path, specially crafting weapons for martial arts world experts. The Lord of Shadowglow in the City of Daylight, Skystrike Dugu, from the Dugu Imperial clan, was titled the first-ranked Shaoshan Marquis. His 3 top managers are all very mysterious, and there are numerous rumors and gossip surrounding them. The City of Daylight's Shadowglow is able to stand among the 7 great sects of the East Sea, all thanks to the strategic planning of the second manager, Shadow Hung. At this moment, Pierce Pei and his group arrived at the foot of the City of Daylight Shadowglow. They did not enter through the main gate. Instead, they arrived at the side gate as if sneaking like thieves. Pierce Pei said that he came out of the city to send the sword, but now the time is late. With everyone, we'll have to think of a way to get into the city. On the side gate of the city wall, Pierce Pei saw a guard he was familiar with. He shouted, "Big brother, please inform the second manager that Pierce Pei has an urgent matter to discuss." Also accompanying him are the second court master Crimson Clouds from Moonlit Water Pavilion and the hero Evander, who from galloping and singing. "Big brother, he mentions that you have brought an outsider. According to the rules, I must first check with our leader," City Patrol Sima said. But Pierce Pei strongly emphasizes that this must not happen. Talk to the second manager first, if you are not available. If you can't, find a way to let Regio pass the message. If you cause trouble, I will never stand by and watch you get into trouble. Big brother, his face darkened a bit, and then he went back to report. Not long after, the city gate opened. But what came out was actually Shadowglow's City Patrol Sima. What came out of the city gate unexpectedly was City Patrol Sima. Evander, who whispered, "It looks like your friend betrayed you." But Pierce Pei still said firmly, "Big brother, he will not betray himself." Pierce Pei bowed with his hands clasped together and said, "I, as a disciple of the Department of Reverence, was sent by the second manager to Moonlit Water Pavilion for official business. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I returned late. Accompanying me were the second court master Crimson Clouds of Moonlit Water Pavilion, disciples of Moonlit Water, and galloping and singing Evander, who. We have important matters to discuss with Hung, the second manager." However, City Patrol Sima showed no mercy and claimed that he hadn't received an invitation from Moonlit Water Pavilion. The City Patrol office has its own way of verifying identities. He immediately pointed at the horse in front of him and asked, "Where did you get this horse from?" Heir apparent is currently chasing a large wild horse. But this one? Seeing Evander, who's staring at him all the time, he picked up the whip and scolded, "Hey, the man over there! Thief-like looks. Did you steal this fine horse?" I didn't expect that even Evander, who can't stand his bad habits. He argues back when provoked. With so many people here, am I the only one who looks like a thief? But looking at the kind appearance of other people, there seems to be some truth to it. Evander, who glared and said, "This is the lone god horse of the Northwest Dystopia Sky Mirror Field. It's not just any horse. He is his own master. Don't blame me if you're not warned. It's better not to provoke it. Otherwise, the consequences are yours to bear." City Patrol Sima's eyes narrowed, seeing that it's a masterless horse. "I'm from Shadowglow City's territory. What belongs to Shadowglow City, come forth. Wrap it up and take it back. Offer it to the heir apparent's men to listen, and then go forward to capture the horse." I didn't expect this horse to be so spirited. Jumping forward and then backward would surely throw off the rider. This scene happened to catch the eye of the returning heir apparent. The heir apparent was drooling with desire. Truly a divine steed, he never expected to find it after searching for so long. And it had unexpectedly shown up right at his doorstep. Immediately, the guards of the heir apparent surrounded the unruly steed. Heir apparent looked down on Evander, who from above. He said with a hint of teasing, "You say it's your master. Then what is your relationship with it?" Evander, who shouted loudly, "We are brothers." Heir apparent unexpectedly laughed out loud. I didn't expect there are still people in the world who consider beasts as human beings? But Evander, who sarcastically retorted in a calm manner, "Heir apparent's words are wrong. Compared to those who treat the common people as beasts and subject them to servitude, what am I when I treat beasts as brothers?" Heir apparent angrily rebuked, "Are you not afraid of being punished for insulting the government in front of me and risking your entire family being exterminated?" But this Evander, who is very slick. He speaks very cautiously, and claims that what he clearly said are those wicked villains. Heir apparent, How can you bring such matters to the court? Heir apparent is so openly slandering the court. I'm afraid even the esteemed father, first-rank Shaoshan Marquis, may find it difficult to explain. The heir apparent flew into a rage upon hearing this, and ordered his subordinates to surround and capture the group of people. Evander, who was secretly figuring out a way to escape, he decided that he must first subdue the heir apparent before making further plans. At this tense moment, the city gate opened again. Hung, the second manager, has arrived. Someone inside shouted to collect the weapons and retreat. And following behind the sedan chair are Pierce Pei's good friends, Big Brother He and Regio. Hung, the second manager, unexpectedly has such a glamorous daughter. Do you esteemed guests feel a bit envious? The sedan curtain is lifted. A woman in a Confucian gown with half sleeves and embroidered silk chest wrap steps out with a lazy charm. She is not tall, but her figure is quite slender. Her hair is styled in a fluffy and playful tassel bun. On her slender and fair wrists, she wears a sheep-fat white jade bracelet. Her skin is even more lustrous than the bracelet. Under the thin muslin sleeves, she wears only a light green chest wrap adorned with vibrant peacock blue embroidery along the edges. The brocade is also embroidered with silver thread patterns. This person is none other than Shadow Hung, the second manager of Shadowglow City, famous in the martial world. Evander, who looked at this person with a dazed expression in his eyes. He never expected that Hung, the second manager who propped up the City of Daylight Shadowglow, would be like this. She is actually a woman. Heir apparent was unexpectedly a bit nervous upon seeing the arrival of Shadow Hung. Shadow Hung said slowly, "This is Evander Hu, known as Hu the Gallant. I believe heir apparent has already met and had a pleasant conversation with him just now. As the only direct disciple of the headmaster immortal of the sea-viewing Heavenly Gate, Hu the Gallant is truly a hero among the youth." This time, whether Shadowglow City can do business with the sea-viewing Heavenly Gate depends on heir apparent. If the business negotiation falls through due to some personal conflicts, it will be difficult for me to explain to the city lord. Do you agree with me, Your Highness the heir? Shadow Hung's voice was as sharp and haunting as a rasp. But at this moment, the heir apparent was nervous, sweating profusely. Shadow Hung continued to introduce. "This person is the Sound Court Master of the Moonlit Water Pavilion. The daughter of General Ran, who rules over Northern Pass, is Crimson Clouds." The heir apparent is even more flustered now. The reputation of Stormblade Ran, the Northern Defender General, is well known to all. As the current war god overseeing the north border, Stormblade Ran commands such respect that even the Emperor must show deference. It's unexpected to find his daughter here. Crimson Cloud said somewhat awkwardly, "I have met the second manager. Heir apparent Crimson Clouds has injuries on his body and hopes for your understanding." The speaker has no malicious intent, but the listener perceives otherwise. The name Stormblade Ran is deeply imprinted in Pierce Pei's mind. It turns out that there is a world of difference between Crimson Clouds and oneself. This huge gap is not something that can be crossed in a single night of hardship. Shadow Hung gently held Crimson Cloud's hand and said, "Ever since the last time we parted ways at the Seven Schools Alliance meeting, a year has passed. We didn't even get a chance to talk then. Who would have thought we would meet again so soon?" He then invited everyone into the city and asked Yang Zhong-su to escort the guests back to the city. But the heir apparent still tried to stop and wanted this good horse. Before he could finish speaking, Shadow Hung interrupted him. "Last time you and I disagreed. When we met the Lord together, the Lord had made a decision. All affairs of Shadowglow City will be handled by me. Heir apparent won't forget, right?" This statement left heir apparent speechless. Then he let Pierce Pei and others enter the city with him. Heir apparent gritted his teeth behind, thinking, "Don't let me catch you one day. I will have my father hand over your body to me for disposal. As for the others, once they enter the city, I will have plenty of opportunities to deal with them." Pierce Pei quietly thanked Big Brother He and Regio from behind. But Righteous said, "No need for thanks. I haven't even seen this basket you brought. Survive and come back to talk." The women's chambers are filled with lingering fragrance. Shadowglow City's second manager is in the side courtyard. Shadowhung listened to the stories of Pierce Pei and others, and couldn't help but be a little surprised. Shadowhung looked at the cursed sword on Pierce Pei's back with curiosity, and couldn't help but become intrigued. He claimed to let me have a look at the red ice cursed sword. Pierce Pei and Crimson Clouds both tried to stop him. Their faces involuntarily turned a deep shade of crimson at the same time. Shadowhung was completely baffled. Yitassel Huang quickly explained to ask the second manager not to blame. "It's just that the knife was poisoned, which is too dangerous for women. It can lead to loss of control at best, and disfigurement at worst." Shadowhung, after hearing that, no longer insisted. He took a sip of light tea and said, "So what is the most urgent matter at hand now?" "The most urgent matter at hand is the safety of the disciple Emerald Lake. I have arranged for the best doctor in the city to treat Emerald Lake and Indigo. You all must be tired as well. Your rooms have been arranged together. You can rest in your rooms first. Tomorrow you will be informed separately about the specific situation regarding Moonlit Water Pavilion and Pointing Sword, the Palace of Wonders. As for the cursed sword Red Ice, I will temporarily seal and keep it myself." Crimson Clouds and Evander, who both thanked the second manager for the thoughtful arrangements and will not trouble them further. At the moment of departure, the second manager called out to Pierce Pei. Pierce Pei obediently sealed away the red ice cursed sword. Inside the room, only Shadowhung and Pierce Pei remained. Shadowhung asked Pierce Pei to seal the sword securely before he went to grind ink for himself. Shadowhung saw Pierce Pei speechless and unable to speak, so he couldn't help but smile. He didn't press further and continued to write at his desk, occasionally reaching out to flip through the file. A few strands of soft hair hung softly by the temples. The tender and fair cheeks exuded a faint peachy hue. The skin was fragrant and delicate, as if coated with condensed cream. It almost made one want to pinch it lightly. Bringing the fingertips closer to the tip of the nose, savoring it carefully, here to give everyone a little time to imagine. Shadowhung uses the finest cinnabar and tribute ink. It costs 10 liang of silver per half liang. Surprisingly, the value of the ink stick is 20 times that of an equal weight of silver. The documents she handles daily pile up on the desk. In less than 10 days, she can use up one ink stick. Sometimes, during festivals, major competitions, summoning of alliances, and other significant events in the city, the consumption is even more severe than usual. Shadowhung squinted his eyes and stretched lazily, like a cat. With a soul-stirring tone, he said, "You guys really know how to give me a hard time." Pierce Pei suddenly remembered what Righteous had said. His heart stirred, and he quickly said in a low voice, "I know my mistake." Shadowhung was startled by what he heard. He chuckled and said, "Where did you learn these empty and meaningless stories?" "I still prefer being regarded as a big sister who is good at teasing when I first meet someone." Recalling Pierce Pei's first meeting with Shadowhung, he claimed that he also has a sister from his hometown. She should be around your age. And enthusiastically took out raisins for Shadowhung to taste. There was not the slightest bit of the present restraint back then. Pierce Pei looked slightly embarrassed at the moment, saying that seventh uncle didn't tell me back then. The second manager who runs Shadowglow City is a woman. After a few conversations and laughter, Shadowhung returned to the topic and said, "You just mentioned that the Water-Lewd Demon Elder helped detoxify Moonlit Water's disciple within the palace. He passed away due to excessive loss. Before his death, he handed the red ice cursed sword to Crimson Clouds. In that case, he should have also told her how to restrain the cursed sword, right?" Pierce Pei panicked and answered hastily. He didn't expect that Shadowhung had already seen through everything. She bit her red lips lightly and said slowly, "You truly are a child who doesn't know how to lie." Previously, Shadowhung stated that red ice was declared by himself during customs clearance. Crimson Clouds did not object. If Water-Lewd Demon truly entrusted red ice to her, then this dagger belongs to Moonlit Water. If she is indifferent like this, how should she explain it to the sect? So, the person who accepts the gifted dagger and listens to the last words can only be you, Pierce Pei. Either you think your own words are insignificant, so you want to use my mouth, Shadowhung, to spread the news of the cursed sword. Either when Water-Lewd Demon was instructing his last words, he entrusted you to keep some secrets, right? After hesitating for a moment, he carefully said, "Before Water-Lewd Demon Elder passed away, he entrusted me with the red ice blade. Then he went over what Silent Way had mentioned before about the characteristics, nature, conditions for possession, and ways to deal with the cursed sword. He is naturally cautious, and has always carefully avoided mentioning them. Soul reclamation technique, and the section on the lost virginity due to poisoning in Crimson Clouds. He keeps silent about those matters, but is willing to share everything that Silent Way narrated, with nothing left unsaid." Shadowhung pondered after listening. The cursed sword is indeed terrifying as mentioned. It was the dying words of Water-Lewd Demon. It seems that the rumor must be true after all. He turned his sharp gaze and asked, "Pierce Pei, have you heard of Xuanqi Featherlight Hall?" Shadowhung and Pierce Pei whispered late at night. "Do you know about Xuanqi Featherlight Hall?" 30 years ago, within the 3 major blacksmith workshops of East Sea, there was no daylight Shadowglow City. The one who led the metallurgy in East Sea was not the Blue Summit Radiance or the Red Serpent Hall, but instead the Xuanqi Featherlight Hall, which has a history of over 500 years. Even after enduring the initial chaos of cursed swords for 500 years, the Xuanqi Featherlight Hall remains strong and prosperous despite the changes in the world. They can use the extremely precious artifact, Tianing, to forge unparalleled divine weapons. Even the Blue Summit Radiance and Red Serpent Hall are hard-pressed to match their craftsmanship. A sect with such vast power was completely expelled from the martial arts world 30 years ago. There were only ruins left, not even a body. And all of this was caused by the cursed sword. Shadowhung confessed, "I have worked hard for 10 years. It is only because of this that Shadowglow City has its current scale. I will never let this city be swept into the cursed sword storm and repeat the tragedy. Red ice must not stay, it must be handed over. You cannot stand with the alliance of the 7 major sections. Admit that Silent Way has revealed all the secrets to you. You were sent to deliver the sword on orders, even putting yourself in danger. Now that you have returned safely, the ink has been enough. Go back and rest well. I will take care of the matter concerning the cursed sword." Immediately let Pierce Pei leave. After ordering Pierce Pei to take a rest, she continued to deal with official business for a while. When she came back to her senses, her lower back was slightly sore. Feeling uncomfortable, she walked into the inner room holding a candlestick. This is her daily dressing room, with no windows around. The only entrance is blocked by a jade folding screen. After dropping the door curtain, there is no risk of being spied on. In the inner room, besides the dressing table and wardrobe screen, there is only a comfortable ebony-toothed bed. Shadowhung picked up the clothing and belly bands spread on the bed frame and placed them in one area. He tapped lightly under the dressing table. With a low click sound, he opened a small side cabinet, took out an ebony small box, and opened it. On the azure satin in the painting lies a peculiar mask that resembles a facial painting. The mask is carved from wood and polished exceptionally smooth. The beautiful wood grain seems to be coated with a layer of finely processed beeswax, giving it a misty and lustrous appearance. From the lustrous surface, clear and delicate textures emerge. It is markedly different from the glossy finish of lacquerware, appearing deeper and more refined. It seems as if the vitality of life contained within the wood is suddenly solidified, as if frozen in the moment of being alive. She picked up the copper tube and gave it a gentle shake, confirming the extremely subtle sound of liquid inside the tube. Then she plucked the tube a few times, moving the raised pattern on the surface to the correct position based on memory. The raised and recessed patterns on the tube surface are connected to tiny springs inside the tube. If it is not opened in the correct way, or if brute force is used to break the copper tube, the stored lime and water inside will immediately mix. In an instant, the rolled-up paper inside will be destroyed and disintegrate. Crack! A crisp sound. Shadowhung repositioned all the spring pieces on the tube surface. A small shaft resembling a copper needle sprang out from the gap in the tube. He then pulled out a 3-inch long pale blue crisp paper like a scroll. This specially made paper is soaked in medicinal materials. Writing does not require ink or brush. She removed the hairpin, and wherever the tip of the hairpin passed, dark blue characters appeared on the paper. Waterloo Demon is dead. Its knowledge still exists, temporarily in my hands, not yet leaked. Red Ice is no master, it must be removed first. Move quickly, in order to make a decision as soon as possible. Remove the red ice from the mask. Surprisingly, it is a seal carved from a celestial bead. The piece of rough paper was stamped with the 4 seal characters. Silent Forest Night Ghost. At the top. The dark red imprint looked like fresh blood smeared on it. Shadowhung carefully rolled up the paper again in the small scroll, as if completing some great task. What keeps Pierce Pay awake at night? The moon rises above the eyebrows. Department of Reverence. Everyone has entered dreamland. Pierce Pay felt the door suddenly open in a daze. The creaking sound surprised Pierce Pay. This figure resembled a demon, with crimson eyes and 4 hands and 4 arms. Spookily said, "Your consciousness feels very different tonight. It will make it easier for me to cut you down." I saw this person holding 4 knives in 4 hands, advancing straight toward Pierce Pay. The knife wind was dense and fierce, brave and resolute. In an instant, Pierce Pay was covered in wounds from the cuts. The pain all over Pierce Pay's body woke him up instantly. The obvious wounds on his body made Pierce Pay realize that this was not just a simple dream. But the wounds on his body quickly disappeared in a short time. Pierce Pay's body was intact once again. At this time, Regio, who seemed drowsy, said, "Young Pay, did you have a nightmare again?" Pierce Pay often has the same dream. It just felt much clearer tonight than usual. Just at that moment, a smelly shoe hit Pierce Pay in the face. A disciple from the Department of Reverence on the other side of the bed angrily sat up. Leveraging his seniority, he cursed, "Pierce Pay, Regio, the 2 of you can't sleep and won't let others sleep? Get out to the courtyard and count the stars for me." In this way, Pierce Pay and the 2 of them were driven out of the room amidst the laughter of the crowd. Under the melon vines and grass, Pierce Pay was feeling somewhat disgruntled. However, Regio saw through it all and declared, "Pierce Pay, you dare not return all night in such a good place as Moonlit Water Pavilion. When you returned, not only did you bring along several beauties, but you also caused a stir at the City Patrol office. It was truly sensational. The key point is that the second manager surprisingly didn't penalize you. It's obvious that old Bao and Jing Tongwen will be envious. Getting into trouble with you is just a matter of time." Pierce Pay never felt that there was anything worth envying. Those who died under the cursed sword survived life-threatening situations. He would rather not experience such events himself. Regio performed a magic trick-like move and pulled out a wine pot from the shadow of a tree. Pierce Pay widened his eyes and watched as Regio enjoyed a few sips. Then Regio handed the bottle to Pierce Pay's nose, and unexpectedly, there was a sweet and fragrant aroma of rice wine. Pierce Pay, without hesitation, took it and took a sip. He only felt sweet and smooth, very easy to drink, but the taste of alcohol was not very strong. Pierce Pay slowly expressed his thoughts. The cursed sword controls one's heart, allowing wanton slaughter right before one's eyes. Logically speaking, he should have felt extremely terrified. But strangely, he was not that scared. While thinking about saving others, he also faintly felt some interest in the cursed sword. "Regio, you said? Is it because I am a blacksmith?" Regio still lazily looks at things lightly, saying, "You shouldn't think that you have become the kind of big shot who can control the situation. Even if the cursed sword is drawn in respect of killing, you and I, who are like us, will not be targeted even if we queue up. Do you want to risk your life like those heroes do? The knife is sharper than tofu. But dare you say tofu is useless? Tofu can be used to make a hot pot. Can a knife do that? Sometimes, the use of being useless is also a kind of use. But Pierce Pay doesn't think so sometimes. Only the knife can save lives. At least, he saved the second court master and the heir apparent of Emerald Lake. Will the heir apparent really make things difficult for Old Who? Can Emerald Lake wake up? As the day begins, Shadowglow City is as busy as ever. It's another bustling day. Department of Reverence is the hub of the city, even before dawn. In the courtyard of the dormitory, disciples on duty are already banging gongs and calling out. Pierce Pei and Regio Jean Sun did not dare to wait for the gong to sound loudly. They obediently got up shortly after catching a bit more sleep. Emohe returned to the dormitory to neatly stack the blankets, change clothes, and clean up. He went to the kitchen to help older disciples like Changbao serve porridge and dishes. Shadowglow City has a large population. Every day, as soon as one opens their eyes, there are thousands of mouths waiting to be fed. There are over a dozen kitchens. The largest canteen can accommodate several hundred people at the same time for meals. Pierce Pei is busy washing cilantro. He thinks to himself that the main kitchen is indeed bustling. At this moment, a waiter shouted, "Today is the new dish coffin sheep developed by Old Quan for the city lord. If anyone makes a mistake, I'll make them sleep in the sheep pen." The reputation of this Old Quan is well known, and Regio has heard of it long ago. Old Quan relies on his cooking skills. Became the third manager of Shadowglow City. The person was tall with a physique akin to an ape. Their rugged silhouette was somewhat hunched. Deep-set eyes, a nose like an eagle's beak. In the purple-red pupils, there was a hint of green. Their disheveled hair was slightly curled, with a dark reddish tint. It was clear at a glance that they had the bloodline of the foreign tribe. Old Quan extended his left index and middle fingers to test the temperature of the stone lid. Nodding, he said, "All right." His voice was hoarse like sandpaper, making his words hard to discern. It turned out that there was a dark red scar in his throat, about 4 inches long, almost across his entire neck. The large Adam's apple was split into two like a walnut. It was hard to imagine surviving such a severe knife wound. Lifting the lid of the coffin sheet dripping with sauce is the most critical step. The thick stone lid, more than an inch thick, requires the strength of 4 people to lift it up in one breath. However, the stone troughs are tightly packed side by side, so if you want to pour the sauce in at the moment the lid is lifted, it's essential to be fast and not allow the 4 people to spread out to the 4 corners, avoiding the cramped situation. The 2 chefs looked nervous, and they hurriedly lifted it with all their strength. Who knew that when the stone lid was moved 2 inches, it fell back down? White smoke billowed into the sky from the overflowing tank. The steam, hot and moist, kept gushing out, scorching to touch. The 2 chefs quickly stepped back. The skin on their arms that had been sprayed by the hot steam immediately turned red, just like cooked shrimp. Just as things were about to be ruined, Pierce Pei quickly stepped forward. Hastily catching the steel fork, he stabilized his stance. Old Quan seized the opportunity to lift the stone pot in one breath. Pour the sauce over the lamb. The fragrance is both delicious and strong. Just by smelling it, you can imagine the rich and greasy aroma of the tender and smooth oil. It's as if taking a bite. The tender meat strips yield to the tip of the teeth, and countless juices flow out. This dish can be considered a success. The crowd burst into joy and praised Pierce Pei for his quick hands and eyes. Just at this lively moment, a strange and unconventional teenager by the stove caught Pierce Pei's attention. The strange teenager in front of him was said to have been picked up by Old Quan. He seemed to be mute. He is also deaf and dumb. Everyone calls him Silly Donkey. I made up the name. It's really hard to translate, but it roughly means that. But Pierce Pay doesn't think so. The teenager in front of him always gives him a familiar feeling. And it doesn't look like he's stupid. It seems more like he has something on his mind, like a teenager. He's still dumb. Why are his hands hurt like that? Pierce Pay held the freshly cooked lamb and delivered it to the young man. But the young man still didn't say a word. Instead, the bowl of lamb was snatched away by Reggio. After enjoying the delicious food, Reggio reminded Pierce Pay that it was almost time. The second manager personally arrived. Being late will be punished by beheading. In the backyard, all disciples of the Department of Reverence have assembled. Only see Shadow hung sitting upright and speaking slowly. As is well known, the Three Great Workshops competition is approaching. This year our city is the host, and the heroes from the two great blacksmith workshops, as well as important court officials, will come in large numbers. Each workshop must make thorough preparations, aiming for excellence and avoiding any mishaps. After hearing this, the people below were all discussing it enthusiastically. Pierce Pay had heard it from Seventh Uncle before. The Three Great Workshops competition is not just a simple martial arts competition. Participants range from top government officials to renowned swordsmen. In fact, it is a great opportunity to discuss the business of weapons. The Three Great Blacksmith Workshops hold a competition annually around the Shanxi Festival. They each present their weapons to judge the quality of craftsmanship. The winner can secure the Imperial Military Equipment Production contract. While the loser may seem to lose face, they can still undertake the arms trade with the armies of the Western Mountains through the Northern Pass. Blue Summit Radiance has been established for nearly a century. Specializing in custom production, they have long dominated the supply to the Imperial Court. Red Serpent Hall, also a century-old blacksmith workshop, controls the transportation on the Fengjiang River. With a large number of people and high production capacity, they have monopolized the business of supplying various military garrisons. Although Shadowglow City is a newcomer, it can showcase its strength through competition.